Hello, my name is Cyjil Matthew, and today I'll be talking to you on the topic what is risk? What is business risk? Business risk is the exposure a company or organization has to factor that will lower its profits or lead it to fail. Anything that threatens a company's ability to achieve its financial goal is to be considered as a business risk. There are many factors that can converge to create business risk. Sometimes it is a company's top leadership or management that creates situations where a business may be exposed to greater degree of risk. However, sometimes the cause of risk is external to a company. Because of this, it is impossible for a company to completely shelter itself from risk. However, there are many ways to mitigate the overall risk associated with operating a business. Most companies accomplish this through adopting a risk management strategy. Factors affecting business risk: consumer preference, demand and sales volume, per unit price and input cost, competition, the overall economic climate, and government regulations. Example of a business risk: competition is a risk that must be faced by every entrepreneur. This is due to an increasingly advanced business will automatically emerge competitors of similar business. The emergence of this competition sometimes creates high risk due to unfair competition. This unhealthy competition can cause losses for business people. Thank you.
Hi all. Today I am going to discuss about the topic basic steps in risk analysis. Why do we do it? Why do we analyze risk? We analyze risk to anticipate and reduce the effect of harmful results from adverse events, to evaluate whether potential risk of a project are balanced by its benefits, to plan responses for technology or equipment failure or loss from adverse events, both by natural and human cost, to identify the impact of and prepare for changes in the enterprise environment. It includes changes to government regulatory policies and new competitors entering in the market, etc. Next one we are going to learn is the steps in risk analysis. The first step in risk analysis is to identify the risk. The risk that the business is exposed to in its operating environment need to be analyzed. We know that there are many types of risk, such as legal, environmental, market, regulatory, etc. So, it is very important to identify as many risk elements as possible. The second step is to analyze the risk. Once a risk has been identified, it needs to be analyzed. The scope of the risk must be determined. It is also important to understand the link between the risk and different factors within the organization. To determine the severity and seriousness of the risk, it is necessary to see how many business functions the risk affects. The third step is to evaluate or rank the risk. Depending on the severity of the risk need to be ranked and prioritized. A risk that may cause some inconvenience is rated lowly. Risks that can result in catastrophic loss are rated to the highest. The fourth step is to treat the risk. Every risk needs to be eliminated or controlled as much as possible. This is done by connecting with the experts of the field to which the risk belongs. The final and the fifth step is to monitor and review the risk. Not all risks can be eliminated. Some risks are always present. Market risks and environmental risks are just two examples of such risks that always need to be monitored. Basic steps in risk analysis. There are four basic steps in risk analysis. They are risk, threat, probability, impact. The first one is risk. Risk analysis is the process of identifying and analyzing potential issues that could negatively impact key business initiatives or projects. This process is done in order to help organizations avoid or mitigate those risks. It allows you to examine the risk that you or your enterprise face and helps you decide whether or not to move forward with a decision. For example, there is a possibility of fire in an office building. The next one is threat. Threat are anything that could cause damage to your organization, venture, or product. This could include anything from other companies to supply shortages, which might prevent you from manufacturing a product. Threats are negative and external. This means that threats do not benefit your company, but there is nothing you can do to stop them from happening. As per the earlier case, in the case of fire, there is a possibility of losing lives and property. Another example, a drought is a threat to a wheat producing company, as it may destroy or reduce the crop yield. Other common threats include things like rising cost of materials, increasing competition, tight labor supply, and so on. Next one is probability. It is a technique used by risk managers for forecasting future events, such as accidental and business losses. This process involves a review of historical loss data to calculate a probability distribution that can be used to predict future losses. The probability analyst view past losses as a range of outcome of what might be expected for the future and assume that the environment will remain fairly stable. There is no data attributing to absence of a fire extinguisher in an office building. Hence, it would make better sense to get rid of fire extinguisher and save money and even space. So logically, there is very low probability of this threat ever materializing. The last one is impact. A business impact analysis is a detailed look at the potential threat an organization faces. A business impact analysis is an essential component of an organization's business continuance plan. One of the basic assumptions behind business impact analysis is that every component of the organization is reliant upon the continued functioning of every other component, but that some are more crucial than others and require greater allocation of funds in the wake of a disaster. Let's, let's suppose that logically you have removed fire extinguisher from the office building and there is a fire incident which could have been prevented if the fire extinguisher would have been available. The high impact of people dying outweigh the mathematically logical move. In this case, because of the possible severity of the outcome, probability does not matter any longer. I hope all of you understood the topic basic steps in business risk analysis. Thank you.
Risk management. What is risk management? Risk management is the identification, evaluation, and prioritization of risk, followed by coordinated and economical application of resources to minimize, monitor, and control the probability or impact of unfortunate event or to maximize the realization of opportunities. In other words, it is the process of identifying, monitoring, and managing the risk. And the main objective of risk management is to minimize the negative impact and to realize maximum opportunities. Risk management is involved throughout the life of the project and it is a framework for the action that need to be taken. Now, let's see what are the 5 basic steps to manage the risk. 5 steps of risk management process. It starts with identifying the potential risk, analyzing the risk, evaluating the risk, treating the risk, and monitoring and reviewing the risk. Risk management cycle. Identifying the risk. It is the first and the foremost step of the risk management cycle. The main objective to identify maximum risk that can affect the project. It is the process of determining the risk that could potentially prevent the program, enterprise, or investment from achieving its objective. An organization can identify their risk through experience and internal history, consulting with industry professionals, and external research. There are many different types of risks that can affect the project. It is important to identify as many as risk factors as possible. Soon after identifying the risk must be assessed. The identified risk is analyzed in this step. It helps to understand the link between the risk and different factors existing within the organization. Here, once the risk has been identified, it must be analyzed. The scope of the risk must be determined. It is also important to understand the link between the risk and different factors existing within the organization. To determine the severity and seriousness of the risk, it is necessary to see how many business functions the risk affect. Effectively assessing and analyzing an organization's risk helps to protect asset and improve decision making and optimize operational efficiency. Next step is risk valuation. So after identifying the risk and assessing it, now we evaluate the risks that are identified. Here, the risk is ranked according to the inconvenience caused to the factors within the organization. Risks need to be ranked and prioritized. Most risk management solutions have different categories of risk depending on the severity of the risk. A risk that may cause some inconvenience is rated at low. Risks that can result in catastrophic loss are rated at high. It is important to rank risk because it allows the organization to gain a holistic view of risk exposure of the whole organization. Treating the risk. This step includes formulation of strategy and treating of risk. Formulating strategy is the process of implementing the solution logically and consistently across the organization and encourage employees every step of the way. Every risk needs to be eliminated or contained as much as possible. This is done by connecting with the expert of the field to which the risk belongs. First, find all the possible solutions for the risk identified. Once all the possible solutions that are identified for the risk, then we have to pick the one solution which is most adaptable and which are likely to achieve desired outcome. It is important to be sure that the method applied are both effective and cost effective. Monitoring and reviewing the risk. Not all risks can be eliminated, but some risks are always present. Market risk and environmental risk are just two examples of risks that always need to be monitored. Monitoring risk also allows your business to ensure continuity. It is important that results be tracked and monitored to ensure that the risk remain within the limit established by the organization's leader. This condition can change rapidly, asset values can fluctuate, and stakeholder preference can change. A critical part of monitoring is ensuring that managers and senior leaders are informed about the progress towards risk goal and change that might have organization impact. Now let's see an example for risk management cycle. Here Jimmy owns a transport business. He drives trucks moving commercial product around Australia. Some of the hazards Jimmy faces each day include contact with chemical and fumes when refueling, uncomfortable seating and fatigue, especially on long journeys. No heating or air conditioning should change the temperature inside the truck. Some steps Jimmy could take to reduce the risk in his daily work include wearing appropriate clothing to reduce his exposure to chemical stacking, regular break during his trip to stretch and walk around, ensuring that he only works the legal hours for his industry to deal with fatigue. Installing fan or air conditioning in his truck, having suitable clothing and water for each trip. Now, let's compare this example with risk management cycle. We know that risk management cycle consists of 5 steps. It starts with identifying the risk. Now, when we compare the identifying the risk with the example, we can first we have to identify the risk. So the risk that involved in this example will be the contact with chemical and fumes when refueling, uncomfortable seating and fatigue, no heating or air conditioning to change the temperature inside the truck. And the next step in risk management cycle is analyzing the risk. So when we analyze the risk that we identified in the first step, all this risk can cause health problems like breathing issues or make his work uncomfortable to Jimmy. Then the next step in risk management is evaluating the risk. In evaluating the risk, we used to prioritize the risk according to the inconvenience it caused to Jimmy. So in this example, we can prioritize the risk by contact with chemical and fumes when refueling, then no heating or air conditioning to change the temperature inside the truck, and last uncomfortable seating and fatigue. The next step in risk management cycle is treating the risk. Here the risk can be treated this can be treated by wearing appropriate clothing to reduce his exposure to chemical stocking, then regular break during his trip, then installing fan or air conditioning in his trip and having suitable clothing and water for each trip. And the last step in risk management cycle is monitoring and reviewing the risk. In this step, we it is a in this step it is a continuous process, and we used to monitor all the risk and project continuously to identify any risk and to review the solutions that we have taken.
Good morning. Today we are going to discuss about risk management. Before moving on to this topic, let's discuss what is risk. It is something that every business faces in its success journey, and it possesses a threat to the success of an entity. It is the probability of an event and the consequences that come along with this event in an organization. Risk is defined as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Risk management. What does risk management focus on? There are mainly 3 points. The first one is identifying. That means identifying the risk that the entity will have to face in the future. Second point is evaluating the various risks and selecting which is the risk that need to be prioritized and dealt with initially. And the final step is implementing strategies or techniques to tackle out the risks that we have identified and evaluated. Now, how risk is managed? This is an important topic. The risk management process involves 5 steps and they are listed here. Let's see. The first one is identifying the risks surrounding your business activities, which means the entity should identify the various risks that they will have to face in the future. The second point is assessing the likelihood of these events. That means checking the probability of this event happening in future. How probable is this event to happen in future? The third point is understanding how to respond to those events. That means once the events or the risks are identified and assessed, the entity then should understand how they have to respond or react to this risk. After the 3 steps, the entity should put systems or techniques to deal with or to tackle out these risks and or consequences in the organization. The final step after placing the systems and techniques in position is monitoring the effectiveness of the risk management approaches and controls. It means once they have enacted or executed the risk management approaches in the organization, the entity then should monitor how effectively these techniques are being implemented. They should make sure that all these functions are in proper place. Then we have got to discuss about the advantages of risk management or the positive impact of risk management approaches. The first point is it improves the decision making, planning, and prioritization in the organization. So, if risk management approach is in a proper shape, the entity will be able to improve all these three factors. The second point is the entity will be able to allocate the resources and capital more efficiently if there is a risk management in the organization. The third point is the entity will be able to anticipate what is going to be wrong in the future. When they are able to anticipate like that, they'll be able to prevent the financial losses to a great extent. Maybe not 100% prevention, but to a great extent, they will be able to prevent the financial losses. The fourth point is they will be able to deliver the business plans on time and budget. It would be time and budget friendly. Finally, to conclude, let's see what's there. Risk management becomes even more important if your business decides to try something new. That doesn't mean old or existing products doesn't need risk management, but when it's something new, it needs risk management even more importantly. Now let's see an example. If you are launching a new product or you are entering a new market, let's see what are the risks that you will have to face. The first risk is competitors in the market. Obviously, the competitors are a risk to your entity. The second point is the breakouts or the breakthroughs in the technology. The advancement in technology can pose a threat to your product than making it redundant. Now, these are the main two risks that you will have to face when you are entering a new product. So, that's all about risk management. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today we can discuss about various types of risk. First of all, we can see what is a business risk. A business risk is the exposure a company or organization has to factor that will lower its profits or lead it to fail. Anything that threatens a company's ability to achieve its financial goals is considered as business risk. It also refers to the possibility of a commercial business making inadequate profits due to uncertainties. The uncertainties mentioned above can called as the risk. Next, we can discuss about various types of risk. First of all, we can see strategic risk. Strategic risks are those that arise from the fundamental decisions that directors take concerning an organization objectives. There are various types of strategies used in an organization. Any change in that strategy can cause a strategical risk. There are various types of strategic risk: reputational risk, governance risk, financial risk, competitive risk, operational risk are various types of strategic risk. Next, we can see what is franchisee risk. Franchisee risk captures the impact of external or internal risk factors on the perceived long term value of the firm. Higher risk gives the company a potential for a greater return, and lower, lower level of risk leads to a lower return. Next, we can discuss about insurance risk. Insurance risks are risks that the insurance company has agreed to provide indemnity for. Business insurance protects business from any financial loss or damage that occur during the everyday operations. The company must indemnify
investors' loss at any cost. Next, we can discuss about legal risk. Legal risk is the risk of financial loss or reputational loss that can result from lack of awareness or misunderstanding of the way law and regulation apply to the business. Legal risk can cause both monetary and non monetary losses to a business. Monetary, which means we can measure in terms of money. Non monetary, we cannot measure them on terms of money. It can happen at any time of business proceedings. Next, we can discuss about financial reporting risk. Financial reporting risk includes any wrong information about financial reporting standards and timeliness, getting information from sources and determining the meaning of this information, and the financial closing process at the end of each reporting period. It refers to the possibility that auditors may fail to detect some significant errors in an accounting report. We all know a company's main statement is its financial statements. Investors take decision based on the financial statements provided by the company. If the auditor unknowingly or knowingly excludes some information from the financial statement, it may lead to the misappropriate decisions taken by the customers. Last, we can discuss about cross-border risk. As the name suggests, it is between two borders or two territories or two countries. Cross border risk is the risk that we will be unable to obtain payment from our customers or third parties or their contractual obligations as a result of certain actions taken by foreign governments, chiefly relating to convertibility and transferability of foreign currency. We all know the laws of each nation are different according to their law. Cross border transactions include both outbound and inbound transfers of property, stock, or financial and commercial obligation between related entities resident or operating in different tax jurisdictions. The risks associated with cross border transactions are very high and but the margin of error is very low. If a company is situated in India and another company is situated in another country, if they want to exchange something, they must fulfill the requirements of law provided by both the countries. Otherwise, it will not be able to transfer cash or foreign currency to any of these countries, between these countries. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Today I am here to talk about risk treatment. Risk treatment follow risk analysis in the risk management process, and its goal is to select one or more option for addressing the risk and the implementing the options. We know that in an organization there may be various risks. In order to treat risk, there are certain conditions or certain points, which includes risk acceptance, risk transfer, risk mitigation, risk avoidance, and risk elimination. First of all, we need to check risk acceptance. Risk acceptance is not really a mitigation strategy because accepting a risk does not reduce its effect. However, risk acceptance is a legitimate option in risk management. There are various reasons why companies may choose risk acceptance in certain situations. The most common reason is that the cost of the other risk management option, such as avoidance or limitation, may not outweigh the cost of risk itself. Accepting a risk is sometimes referred to as do nothing. This may be a familiar concept for those who are familiar with project management fundamentals. As you develop your strategies, you should consider the implication of doing nothing. This can be a way of ensuring that you are taking appropriate action because if you consider the implications of your accepting the risk, you can see the potential consequences and weigh them out against other options. Risk acceptance is that the company has no other choice. It wants to accept the risk. For example, we need to see an option that in an organization, the company will not spend $1 lakh in order to avoid a risk of $10,000. In this case, the cost outweigh the benefit of most organization, and it only have an option to choose the risk, or it will not spend extra money in order to avoid that risk. For example, we had seen this. The company will not spend $1 lakh in order to avoid a risk of 10,000. So the company will definitely accept the risk and continue its operation. Also, we can see an acceptance criteria on the right side of the PPT. The white color describes the unacceptable risk and need for further evaluation on gray color, and white shows acceptable risk. Risk transfer. Risk transfer can be defined as a mechanism of risk management that involves the transfer of future risk from one person to another. And one of the most common example of risk management is purchasing insurance, where the risk of an individual or a company is transferred to a third party. Risk transfer, in its true essence, is the transfer of implication of risk from one party to another. Such a risk may or may not necessarily take place in future. Transfer of wages can be executed through buying an insurance policy, contractual agreement, etc. Risk transfer means it is a transfer of risk from one person to another. In for showing risk transfer, one of the most used example is showing insurance companies example. We can see that when an insurance is taken, and we can see the policy will definitely the risk will transfer from the person to the policy holder. So there is a risk transfer. There is a transfer of risk between two or more persons. One of the most common areas where a risk transfer take place in, we can see in insurance. An insurance policy can be defined as a voluntary arrangement between two individual or an organization. A policyholder get insured against potential financial risk by purchasing an insurance policy from the insurance company. This is how the risk transfer works. Risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is a strategy to prepare for and lessen of the effect of threats faced by business. Comparable to risk reduction, risk mitigation take place steps to reduce negative effects of threats and disaster on business continuity. Threat that might put business at risk include cyber attack, weather events, and other cause of physical or virtual damage. Risk mitigation is one of the element of risk management, and its implication will differ from organization. We are seeing that risk arise due to cyber attacks from various persons or weather condition. We had seen corona and flood that affect even the economy of the country and loses the profit of many organizations. So the company want to analyze various risks and adopt suitable decision for the organization. So the company want to analyze each risk mitigation. So what's the main goal of risk mitigation? The risk mitigation is the process of planning for disaster and having a lesson to negative impacts. We know that even flood will affect a negative impact in an organization. The corona definitely affected the various organization. So the company want to analyze and study the impact on organization and want to reduce this risk and wanted to change the negative into a positive. In order to create a risk mitigation plan, which includes 5 steps, they are identify the risk, performance of risk, prioritize, track risk, and implementing and monitoring process. Risk avoidance. Risk avoidance is the elimination of hazards, activity, and exposures that can negatively affect an organization and its asset. While complete elimination of risk is rarely possible, a risk avoidance strategy is designed to deflect as many threats as possible in order to avoid costly and destructive consequences of a damaging event. Risk avoidance means we need to eliminate hazards or activities certainly which definitely affect an organization and its asset. For an example, if the investor want to buy a stock in an oil company, but oil prices have been falling significantly over the past few months. There's political risk associated with the production of oil and credit risk associated with the oil company. If the investor assess the risk associated with the oil industry and decide to avoid taking a stake in the company, this is known as risk avoidance. If the investor is investing in the oil company, it will definitely know that it will go on decreasing. So we need to avoid risk in this situation. We can say conceptual framework. Elimination of risk hazards activity exposures minimize vulnerabilities, training and education. While avoiding certain risks, we will definitely achieve into success. For example, quality of works, being as per schedule, being with budget, team satisfaction. While avoiding certain risk, we will definitely reach into success, which shows a conceptual framework of risk avoidance. The next is risk elimination. Elimination is a process of removing the hazard from the workplace. It is the most effective way to control risk because hazard is no longer present. It is the preferred way to control a hazard and should be used whenever possible. Risk elimination is we are completely eliminating that kind of risk from an organization. In order to see this, we can see an example. When there is loose stocks or damaged machineries or outdated systems, we can eliminate this from the organization, which will definitely an effective way to control a risk. This such kind of things in the organization. So this is the elimination of this is a removing or the elimination of hazards from the workplace is called risk elimination. So we can see a summary of this: all risk transfer, risk avoidance, risk elimination, or risk acceptance. Thank you. I had taken certain informations from Investopedia, Wall Street Mojo, Wikipedia, and Google. Thank you. I hope the session was informative and everyone understood everything.
Control. Understanding control. There are two types of control: understanding internal control, understanding external control. Understanding internal control means understanding internal control is a process for assuring of an organization's objectives in operational effectiveness and efficiency, reliable financial reporting, and compliance with laws, regulations, and policies. A broad concept, internal control involves everything that controls risks to an organization. In this, an organization resources are directed, monitored, and measured. Next, understanding external control. An external control is an action taken by an outside party that impacts the governance of a business. For example, a government could enact a law that prohibits a firm from using a discriminatory hiring practices, or a company could expose audits on its suppliers to ensure that they are complying with minimum labor standards. Example: the next step is to prepare a risk treatment that will propose effective controls for managing risk. A bank is prone to theft and other malpractices. So, to reduce exploitation, the company plans to adopt various measures like securing the bank by putting more securities, review the security plans and processes, use theft deterrents or highly functional cameras, etc. These various measures taken by the company is the risk treatment plan. This plan will propose effective control for managing risk. Risk treatment plan. Risk treatment plan is a process of selecting and implementing of measures to modify risks. Risk treatment measures can include avoiding, optimizing, transferring, or retaining risks.
Hi everyone. Today I am going to talk about meaning of control. Meaning of control. Control is a function of management which help to check the errors in order to take corrective actions. This is done to minimize deviations from standards and ensure that the stated goals of the organization are achieved in a desired manner. So, in the modern concept, control is a forcing action. Earlier concept of control were only used when error were detected. Control in management include setting standards, measuring actual performance, and taking corrective action in decision making. Next, we can see the definition of control. In 1916, Henry Fayol formulated one of the first definition of control as it pertained to management. Definition: control of an undertaken consists of saying that everything is being carried out in accordance with the plan which has been adopted. The orders which has been given and the principles which have been laid down. Its objectives is to point out mistake in order that they may be rectified and prevent from recurring. After definition, we can discuss about the characteristics of control. In control, there are many characteristics. We can discuss each one of them. Control is a continuous process. Control saves time. Control is a management process. Control is closely linked with planning. Control is an end-to-end process. It is a tool for achieving organizational activities. It compares actual performance with planning performance. Point out the error in the execution process. It minimizes the cost. It achieves the standard. So the control that says that it minimizing the cost and it is an end-to-end process. It does not record any more costs. It only minimizes the cost. Control save time. It does not record more time. So it saving the time. And it is a continuous process. It never ends. After meaning, definition and characteristics, we can discuss about the process of control. Process of control are in stepwise. There are 4 steps in process of control. The first step is establishment of standards. Second step is measurement of actual performance. Third step is comparison of actual performance with the standards. And the final one is corrective action if it necessary. In process of control, we need to detailedly check each and every points clearly. The first step, establishment of standard. A company must develop, document and explain clear standard and method for measuring particular performance. This must be specific and understood so effective measuring of task and responsible can be take place. In this way, an enterprise can gain a good understanding of who is performing accordingly to company objectives. Proper standard and methods for measuring performance help a company tweak their process as required for better result. Performance measurement help them see whether the process and procedure need improvement. Step 2. Measurement of actual performance. This must be done in consistent, regular manner to facilitate proper data acquisition to make informed decision concerning performance. This regular measuring gives management some substantial information so they can make adjustment as necessary to their protocol. Step 3. Comparing actual performance with standards. Company management compares measure result with the standards they previously established. Therefore, they can determine if performance is up to their expectations or not. With this comparing, they can decide to abandon certain policies and procedures or tasks, modify them or leave them in place. Step 5. Taking corrective action. A company must use the information gathered from the control process. Not taking action based on revealed information means they wasted their time and resources instituting the control process. They must take action that gave solution to problems. They must then measure their corrective action sometime down the road to see if they are performing up to corporate expansions. Consequently, the control process is something that is ongoing in organization to make sure that the business is performing optimally. Okay friends, today we discussed about the topic related to control, the meaning of control and the definition of control and the characteristics of control. We discussed it. After this, we discussed about the process of control. The process of control are determined in 4 steps. We discussed we discussed the 4 steps and we detailedly go through it. So friends, you can refer this topic from Wikipedia and Cyjil. Okay, thank you for hearing.
Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about types of control in managing business process, and the major type of control are in the case of organization control system allow executives to track how well the organization is performing, identify areas of concern, and then take action to address concern. Three basic types of control system are available to executives. The first one is output control. Second one is behavior control, and third one is client control. The internal control can be divided into preventive control, dictative control, corrective action, preventive action. And in the first case, we will talk about preventive control. Preventive control attempt to deter or prevent undesirable events from occurring. They are proactive controls that help to prevent a loss. Examples of preventive control are separation of duties, proper authorization, adequate documentation, and physical control or assets. In a simple ways, we can say that preventive controls are the methods to control an undesirable loss or an unpredictable failure in an organization. So there are specifically some activities to prevent this, and analyzing this chart, we can say that there are various cycles, and in this case we there are in the left side business process life cycle, where business process analysis and design and deployment execution, there are major activities going on, and internal control and risk assessment cycle on the right side, where it determines the risk, analyze the risk, design of internal controls, revise policies and procedures to mitigate risk, and at the end of the day, preventive control mainly focus on the root cause, or comes on a root cause analysis, where an organization can prevent and detect the major cause of problem in an organization, and the things that would be communicated to from business analyst to internal auditor, and internal auditor to external auditor. This will help the organization to make the performance much better, and in this case we will talk about prevention control. What are the types of prevention control? Preventative control are designed to be implemented prior to a threat event and reduce or avoid the likelihood and potential impact of a successful threat event. Example of preventative control includes policies, standards, processes, procedures, encryptions, firewalls, and physical barriers, which means that this all things comes under internal control, which helps the organization to prevent such losses. Like in the case of encryption firewall, we can reduce the data loss, or we can prevent the data from losing from organization to others, like hackers, or the company consider its ethics to its company. And in this diagram we can detect that, we can see that, we can as analyzing this diagram, it says that controls prevention, detection, and response, which helps the organization for moving more easily. And now we are discussing about the advantages and disadvantages of preventative control. Advantage is less equipment downtime, longer asset life, fewer interruption to critical operations, increased workplace safety, and improved compliance with OSHA, which and improved efficiency. Assets in good condition perform better. Major disadvantages are upfront cost. Keeping equipment well maintained requires investment, more labor intensive, so you will need more staff on hand, potential for maintenance cost. These are the major advantages and disadvantages of preventative control. And next, we are going to discuss about dictative control. A dictative control is a type of internal control that seeks to uncover problems in the company processes once they have occurred. Examples of dictative control include physical inventory checks, reviews of reports, and reconciliation, as well as assessment of current controls, as well as dictative controls are internal audits, reviews, reconciliation, financial reporting, financial statement, and physical inventories. In simple words, this detective controls detect and correct already occurred undesirable events, which means that detective control should be implemented after the problem occurred in an organization. So that would be more helpful. And when we're considering detective control and preventive control, what are preventive and detective control? Or what is the difference between this control? Preventive control is designed to identify and stop an issue from occurring. Detective control is designed to identify issue upon occurrence. As in the first slide, we have discussed about preventive control, which means that which to identify and stop an issue from occurring, which is which is which thinks about the problem and try to prevent it from happening. And in detective control, it happens after the occurrence of problem, which helps to rectify the problem in the company. In each case, management has defined the activity or trigger of that activity that the control is reporting on. Preventive control cannot be designed to identify and prevent every risk from occurring. Thus, detective control are the other half of the control structure and attempt to identify those issues or risk not able to manage through a preventive control that management has determined need to be addressed. As an example of how both preventive and detective control are found within the four main types of internal control, a detective IT general control for its security would be reporting to IS operation inappropriate attempts to access a system or application. The preventive IT general control for security would be locking out the user account after predetermined number of failed attempts to access a system of application through that user's account. This is the major example for detective versus preventive control, which gives a specific knowledge that this is the major difference. And what are the advantages of defective control and disadvantages? The major advantage is that less expense and more reliable and it can be applied over a large number of transactions in a short time. Disadvantages, the major disadvantages are a continuous operating expense is involved, which can be costly. This control present evidence of occurring loss but do not prevent a loss from occurring. The next one we are discussing about corrective action. Corrective action is an important or series of improvements to an organization, business process and procedures to correct the root cause of a non-conformance and to prevent their recurrence. They are the mechanisms that drive continuous improvement. Corrective action is an aspect of quality management that aims to rectify a task, process, product, or even a person's behavior when any of these factors produce errors or have deviated from an intended plan. Corrective actions can be thought of as improvement to an action to eliminate undesirable effects. And next, we are discussing about steps in corrective actions. In this case, the first step is define the problem. We are describing the problem. What is the problem that happens in an organization? And the next step is define the scope. What are the things? What are the scope of? What are the things that comes under these things? And the next step is containment actions. And the fourth step is identify the root cause. This is a major step. That root cause, identify the major root cause that happens in an organization for the failure or the problem that happened in the previous attempts, and the next step is plan a corrective action, and the next step is implement the corrective action, and afterward follow up to make sure that the plan worked. Corrective actions always correct the previous action. Let us talk about an example about corrective action. For example, putting out a fire in an office is a correction. This action eliminates the problem. Corrective actions, on the other hand, eliminate the root cause of the problem, preventing future issues. The corresponding corrective actions then addresses the root cause of the fire, such as fixing all fire. Here, the root cause is fire, and the corrective actions done by the company or the organization is trying to they fix the old wiring, which helps to correct the major cause or the root cause. And the next thing we are discussing about steps in control process. And when in this diagram, we are seeing that establish performance standards. Second is determine performance measurements. Third is measure performance, compare with standard, evaluate. And if this not work, if there are any errors, we should go take corrective actions if necessary. And next is we are talking about preventive action in management system. A preventive action defines could be the activities taken by the organizations to eliminate the cause of potential process non-conformity. If you identify potential problems that could happen in a process, assessing what could cause this process and taking actions to prevent. Preventive action is any proactive methodology used to determine potential disrupt, disruptancy before they occur and to ensure that they do not happen, thereby including, for example, preventive maintenance, management, review, or other common forms of risk avoidance. Examples for preventive actions: implementing new training programs for employees, regularly reviewing and updating company documents such as policies, procedures, code of ethics, code of conduct, conducting internal audits, performing regular maintenance on equipment and machines. What are the major difference between corrective actions and preventive actions? Corrective actions is used after the problem happens in the process. Preventive actions are implemented before the problem happens, as well as when a risk is identified. And what is the role in ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and the majority of ISO management system standards? What is the role in ISO management system standards of corrective actions versus preventive actions? Includes assessment of root cause and plan to prevent recurrence in the case of corrective actions. In the case of preventive actions, replaced by risk-based thinking and improvement rather than a formal process. Role in ISO 13485 and IATF 16949 includes, in the case of corrective actions, includes assessment of root cause and plan to prevent recurrence. In the case of preventive actions, includes assessment of root cause and plan to prevent occurrence. Type of activity: reactive activity happens after the fact in the case of corrective actions. Preventive actions: proactive activity takes action when a risk is identified.